All right, Shane. So, hey, the thing I wanted to spiel with you here, I've updated my SEC power rankings. And as per usual, got a ton of hate here, which is to be expected. But, and feel free to hate on this list all you want, Shane. You ready to run down this list?
Again, this is SEC Mike's list, not Shane, no affiliation at all. But yes, I'm ready to bash your list.
And the way I do these, as always, this is not a reflection on what we saw last season, or if you just want the betting odds or anything like that, this is not the place to come. This is, in my opinion, if Team A and Team B met tomorrow on a neutral field, no home field advantage, which team do I think is coming out ahead?
Mhm.
That's how I do this, and we'll start. No surprise. Number 14 on the list here,
Mhm.
Vanderbilt Commodores.
Take it down.
I like what Coach Lee is bringing to this program, but at the end of the day, ton of improvements need to be made to this roster before they're even competitive in the SEC. Any debate there, Vanderbilt, number 14.
No debate. But I will say this isn't the lowest 14 ever. You know what I'm saying? It feels like they're a little closer to the pack than usual, and wouldn't surprise me if they were a little higher, especially toward the end of the season, because there's a lot of young, raw talent there. And
Mm-hmm.
but again, this is a rebuild. This is creating a culture down there that takes time. So for that right now, I'm with you, man. 14, but I don't think it's a huge gap with the other schools like it has been in years past.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 13. Again, I don't think this will be much of a surprise given what this coach is inheriting here, but I'm going South Carolina Gamecocks, number 13 in my
Hmm.
SEC power rankings. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you here as well. This is what I was talking about, Vanderbilt being a little closer to South Carolina. But again, raw young talent, this is something that could take off. And I think the thing that worries me the most is the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that rears its ugly head here at the start of the season. But yeah, I could see them at 13, 12, 13 area.
Yeah, and I think with the Gamecocks, the more I hear about their defensive coordinator Clayton White, I like that hire. I think he's going to do well, but we just kind of railed about how terrible Muschamp was running that defense. So there's a ways to go on that side of the ball. And
Yeah.
as for the offense, the more I saw from them, and in this coming off the spring game, I really like what they're planning to do on that side of the ball. But I just don't know if they've got the quarterback and, in particular, the receivers
Yeah.
to really run that system, because they're trying to be, what LSU was with
Hmm.
Joe Burrow and Joe Brady, and it's one thing to say you're going to do that, but hell, they had the number one overall quarterback or number overall pick in the NFL draft, and their offensive coordinator is now an NFL offensive coordinator. So
Right.
it's just you need the athletes to do it, and I think South Carolina can get there, but they're just not there at this point.
Yeah.
All right, here's probably the one, Shane, that was the biggest controversy, and these fans think I hate them.
Tennessee Vols.
No, not Tennessee, not yet. Missouri Tigers, number 12 in my SEC power rankings. And, I'm not sitting here bashing them or anything like that, but, this is my honest opinion. Everybody seems to be a lot higher on the quarterback, Connor Bazelak, than I am. I just don't think he's quite the, one of the elite players in the SEC that some people make him out to be. You go back to last season, they got destroyed by Mississippi State at the
Yeah.
tail end of the season. Anytime they played, someone like Georgia or Florida, they got blown out. Just kind of gives you an indication of the room for growth that has to go in Missouri there. And I think maybe we got a little too hyped up when they beat LSU, because hell, we found out real quick LSU was a fraud last year till
Yeah.
the last two games of the season. And Missouri was actually ranked there. I think it was in November when
Hmm.
they beat the hell out of Vanderbilt 41-0. But then we came to realize real quick that, Vanderbilt was one of the worst teams in all of college football. So brighter days are coming for Missouri, but I don't know. And they're losing some really, really key players like Nick Bolton and Larry Roundtree that I just don't think you could replace those guys necessarily. And it's not even just their production on the field, but it's their leadership and just being leaders of the team. I don't know who's going to step up and be those guys just yet.
Well, I think this is where we're going to differ here because I'm kind of with the Mizzou crowd. Finding a good quarterback in the SEC is really hard to do, and I saw enough from Basilak last year to know that he's got potential. And another offseason, actually a real first offseason with Coach Eli, I think is going to be a world of difference with these young receivers that they got. Yeah, they got a lot of changing on defense, but that's not what this team's going to be about, man. This team's going to be about offense first, and it kind of felt a little governed last year, a little held back, and you mentioned some ugly losses, but that team dealt with some serious COVID issues last year too, and I think that cost them because they weren't deep. They're not deep like a lot of teams in the SEC were last year, and they built some of that competitive depth. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go a little higher on Mizzou here just because of quarterback play in particular.
All right, next on the list, Shane, number 11, Mississippi State. Like what Mike Leach is bringing with a lot of young talent, Will Rogers and Jaden Wally and they've got maybe the most underrated running back duo. A couple of sophomores coming back, a lot to like. Zach Arnett, I thought he did a terrific job with what he had to work with on that defensive side of the ball. But offensive line, a huge question mark for me, and it was just a roller coaster of a season. We come out here. We whoop LSU's ass, and then we find out, same thing with Missouri here, we find out real quick LSU was kind of a fraud.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe Mike Leach was only going to get 1 year at Mississippi State the way it was going there for a couple weeks. But then tail end of the season, they almost beat Georgia in Athens. They whip up on Missouri. I mean, they righted the ship. I know people roll their eyes when I say this, but they beat Tulsa in the bowl game, and Tulsa was a top 25 team. So it certainly seems like Mississippi State's pointed in the right direction, and they may be a little too low on this list too. But hell, this is the SEC, brother. I mean, you're 10 or 11 in the SEC. You're still top 25 nationally. You know what?
That's so long. Is the Tulsa one that got the fight there at the end? Or yeah, okay.
The brawl.
Yeah, no, yeah, there's a lot of fight. I think I'm a little higher on Mississippi State too, just because Coach Leach, if you look at where he stopped, at these different universities, it seems like I don't know what the opposite of sophomore slump is, but it's what it is. There's just a second year spike with his offense, especially. So I think we see that a little bit next year, and I'm a little bullish on Mississippi State. Now I'm not as high as what did they come out with the rankings the other day? Was it like top 10, something like that?
ESPN FPI had him number 8 in the nation.
Yeah, I'm not there, number 8, but I'm thinking a borderline 25 team here. So, and a lot of that has to do with the offense and the progression I saw in the season last year. The defense obviously kept them in a lot of games, but I think that offense is going to take control next year. So yeah, I'm bullish on them. I think you're dogging them a little bit, pun intended.
All right, how about this one, Shane? I assume you'll love this one. Tennessee, number 10. And you'd be surprised how many Vols are just cheering the fact they're in the top 10 of the SEC after just a wild couple of weeks and months here on Rocky Top. But, hey, I really like the more I learn about Josh Heupel and his offense, I think, and what we saw in the spring game, I've got confidence that they're going to put up a ton of points. They may not be able to stop anybody, but I think it's going to be entertaining. And if you look at their non-conference schedule, they should be favored in all 4 of those games. And hell, I mean, if they manage to win those, you're talking wins over South Carolina and Vanderbilt potentially, and Tennessee's bowl eligible. So I think people are sleeping on Tennessee. What are your thoughts on the Vols at number 10?
Well, yeah, they're sleeping on them. I mean, you're talking SEC champs here, Mike. Seriously, I do the same thing every single year, Mike. I kind of dog them a little bit in the spring, and then the media days come out, then the hype train, the hype videos come out. Next thing you know, I've got them competing for the East again. So I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic here, temper expectations. The offense did look great, absolutely, but it was either against a poor defense or, I don't know. I'm feeling like we got a lot of flaws on that other side, and that could easily get exposed if so. But I will say this, Mike. A lot of people are asking how I felt about the game. I freaking loved it, man. I'm all about offense, and because that's what football has become. I mean, you hear Nick Saban talking about it all the time about keeping people around 24 points is a hell of a game, a hell of a feat these days. You got to be able to put some points on the board, and I like that with Heupel. I like the play calling, man. I'm telling you, I was watching some of these plays, and it was just like, oh shit, I've never seen a play like that before, and so I was really pumped up. Unfortunately, I just don't think we have the talent yet, especially the depth. To go the distance, especially on that defensive side of the ball. So I'm kind of with you. I'd probably even drop them down a couple spots. But I think potential's there, but it's one of those, man. You got to water it and wait for it to grow.
Mm-hmm. Well, a little bit of breaking news here, Shane, as we're recording. USC grad transfer Caleb Tremblay just announced he's headed to Rocky Top to help out. He's a defensive tackle.
I am.
I don't think he's going to be any kind of All-American or anything, but
Hey, we'll take
hey,
it.
little bit of added depth, and coming off that,
Move the balls up.
coming off that spring game, who was really impressed, Shay. They landed a quarterback too, so Tennessee landed a 4-star quarterback, Taven Jackson. He was the number 3 highest ranked quarterback that was uncommitted in the country. So there's some momentum there for the Vols. That's all I'm trying to say, Shane.
That's the key, Mike. This is a serious year because you may not be as competitive as you want, but if you're freaking fun and having fun doing it, and you're getting these receivers involved and running backs involved and quarterbacks are getting to air it out, and you become a fun place to play. I think that's very important, and you saw that there was a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz after that spring game, and then we land a few recruits. So all it takes is it's a game of momentum. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 9 on my list, Shane. Auburn Tigers.
War damn eagle.
And man, Auburn fans are. This is another fan base convinced that I hate them. The Tigers do have a lot of talent.
Do you know who Tank is?
Tank Bigsby. I keep saying he's probably the best running back in the SEC next season. They've got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, and I really like this staff they have with Brian Harsin and Derek Mason and Mike Bobo. I think that's a solid trio there. But while Auburn does have a ton of talent, it's almost like they got it in the wrong spots because Bo Nix, I try to give him more credit than just about anybody, but still, he's a huge question mark. He went in the wrong direction last year. They're replacing the entire receiving core, and I know that the guys there are coming up. They were all 4-star recruits, but that doesn't necessarily always translate to success. It's more important to have returning production than it is to just have unproven 4-star players at that position. And part of the reason why Gus Malzahn's no longer there is because he could not recruit an offensive line to save his life. So what's the value of having the best running back if you can't run block for him? And when you're trying to get a quarterback to realize his potential, but we're replacing all the receivers. I just think it's going to be a damn struggle on the offensive side of the ball. And Auburn may have to, win ugly next year. And that's just not the way college football's trending. If you can't score 20 points, you're not going to win many football games.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you here, man. Actually, I think that's kind of a good spot for them. And a lot of that hinges on Bo and what I think highly of Tank. And I like the direction. I watched a little bit of the spring game, and I love the calling. I love the play calling. But you're right. There's some unproven positions, some valuable unproven positions, mainly up front. And some of those runs that Tank even had, there was some questionable defensive play calling over there. So I'm just a little bullheadish on them as well. I want to see this more in action because it's really just hard to judge. And you think about first time coaches in the SEC. Think about it. Just every coach that took a job in the SEC, I'm sure you could find one or two that really excelled. But for the most part, it's a 500 season, and some are going to land into a bowl game and have a couple of games go their way, but it's very, very rare that you're going to come out and win 10 games. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit why I'm concerned. Not so much the talent there in Auburn, but more or less just the whole picture here.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 8, Shane, on my list, the Ole Miss Rebels.
Hotty toddy, Ole Miss.
Everybody's hopping on the lane train. We're going in the right direction. Except old offensive line coach Randy Clements. They fired him this week. It's never a good sign when you fire an assistant right after the spring game, but that's what happened down there. But I kind of kid, but things are trending in the right direction. Matt Corral, everybody's hyping him up as the best quarterback in the SEC, and I don't dispute that. He's right there playing in Lane Kiffin and Jeff Lebby's system. I think they're going to light up the scoreboard once again, even though they are losing Elijah Moore, who is maybe the most underrated player in the country last season, but still going to have a ton of success on that offensive side of the ball. But for me, the defense was just such a nightmare last year. I don't know. Now, again, that's another one that they had COVID issues and defense across the board struggled, and I think it will get better certainly because it couldn't get much worse. But just the teams in front of Ole Miss right now, I think, are a little bit better. And again, if you're 8 in the SEC, I know Ole Miss fans probably not happy to hear that. You're potentially a top 20 team in the nation. So you just got to remember you're in the SEC, brother, and I mean there's no layups in this league.
No, there's not. And I'm a little higher on Ole Miss because maybe I bought back into the Lane train. I loved what I saw last year, and a lot of valuable pieces coming back. So I think what hurts them the most, obviously, being in the West this year, or just
Mm-hmm.
every year, it's going to be a juggernaut schedule that they have, but. We're not talking schedules, Mike. We're talking neutral fields here. So that's why I'm going to go a little higher on Ole Miss just because the talent they do have coming back. Slightly, not.
I got you. How about number 7 on my list, Shane? Here, the Kentucky Wildcats. Now they're tough to place because leading into spring football, if you recall, I said they'd be the number 2 team in the East. And I'm not totally backing off that. I don't have them number 2 in the East currently, obviously, but a lot of that just has to do with the fact that, man, we just got no look at this offense, and we have no resolution on who the quarterback's going to be, and we know how important that position is to the game of football, and I expect the defense is going to be the strength of this team once again, but until we know what they got at the quarterback, and hell, the offensive coordinator's touting up, Will Levis, who's not even on campus. So that tells me that his best option may not even be there yet. And it's hard for me to put Kentucky any higher than number 7 until we know what this offense is and how successful it can be year one. Because if it is a great offense, hell, Kentucky is moving up my list, but I can't put them any higher than this till I see what they've got on that side of the ball.
See, Mike, what I can do is just keep saying you're wrong till we get to the last one. Like I'd have a little. Everybody be saying Shane's right, man. And I'm with you. If anybody's followed this podcast, they know I tout Kentucky probably more than any Tennessee fan will ever do. But just listen to what you said, Mike. They don't have a quarterback right now. And if you don't have a quarterback in the SEC, you saw what it looked like last year with no quarterback. I can't imagine saying, you know what? Yeah, they're going to be better. They don't have the offensive line like they did, or they don't have some of the defense players like they had, but they're going to be a better place. It's just It's kind of like Tennessee, man. I just can't buy into it right now. So I'm going to drop Kentucky a little bit. I mean,
Ooh.
because if I saw right now, Mike, you're saying power rankings. If a team like Ole Miss and Kentucky met on a neutral site right now, you're willing to put money on Kentucky. Is that what you're saying?
I
Now,
am, and I'll
okay.
be honest with you. I flipped these two about 3 or 4 times. But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, I gave Kentucky that slight edge because because of their offensive line, their running game, and their defense. The combined factors here. I think I think they would beat Ole Miss. Cause I think I'm a little bit lower on Ole Miss than most people
yeah.
are, but I mean I'm splitting hairs right here.
Yeah, I mean, we got a new coordinator, new offense. There's going to be it's Kentucky's going to be funner to watch. I get that, but I'm just not. Until we got a quarterback, and I was hoping we'd get that, by the end of spring here, but we don't. We have no resolution here, and like you said, we're touting guys that ain't even on the damn campus yet. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little, like I said, a little bullheadish on Kentucky now. After week one, I may eat my words and say they're back. So that's what I fully expect. Kentucky seems to do well when I'm down on them, and they do worse when I'm all in. So maybe this is a good sign, Big Blue Nation.
All right, how about this number 6? This one caught a lot of eyes too. I got the Arkansas Razorbacks, Shane, number 6 in the SEC East.
Woo pig.
Mm-hmm.
We all know the strides they made last season. I think that's just going to continue. They're bringing back a ton of super seniors, and not only guys that were bench players, but we're talking all SEC performers that could be on their way to the NFL right now. I've been hyping up KJ Jefferson like nobody's business. I think he's going to be better than Felipe Franks in this offense. I love the weapons around him, and I think this is a year where last year was great. Arkansas no longer a joke in the SEC, but I think this is the year they take that step to be, every game basically you got to worry because you're playing the Arkansas Razorbacks, and if you don't bring your best game, they can beat you.
Well, Mike, again, real. I mean, this is tough when you get up here, man. And
Mm-hmm.
putting the Razorbacks up there, I think that's an emotional pick right now, because you got all these guys coming back, and I love. Don't get me wrong, I love what Sam Pittman's doing and the culture he's creating there. These guys are coming back for him. They're coming back for their university, and you love that story. KJ, man, we've been talking about him since what, 2004? It feels like. Is this the year he breaks out? And we saw a little glimpse of it in the past. I don't know. I'm not totally convinced, but I do like what is coming back, and I love a senior-led team. I think that's one of the most underrated stats out there. If you ever been a part of a group or a part of a class or something like that, you got some real good leaders in there. It elevates the play around the field, and I think that's what we're going to get this year from Arkansas. I don't think talent, top to bottom, Arkansas is better than the Kentucky Wildcats. I don't, but what I do think happens is because of the way this team is being led, that they get more. They get more attributes off these players, and they play better as a team. You saw it last year. Every game was an emotional game. And that's why I kind of like where you have them. I guess I'm convincing myself now that's a good spot. I'm a little worried about the quarterback play because KJ, does he stay healthy? What does it look like if he doesn't? And there's some of those factors. I wish Mike Woods would have stuck around, but with what we got, yeah, I definitely see. I got you. I'm coming around, Mike. Okay, Arkansas, good spot.
All right, now the top 5. Now you got to think that these are the truest contenders to win the SEC this season. I'm going number 5, Florida Gators. And I know a lot of people down on that defense. I think defense is going to make a comeback this season in college football. And there's a lot of players on that Florida defense that got potential. Our buddy Matt Hayes, friend of the show, says he's talked to coaches who say there's 6 NFL draft picks on this defense next season. So you got to have faith that that defense, it can't get any worse. It's got to get better. And then, a lot of people doubting the offense, which is understandable when they lose guys like Pitts and Kadarius Toney, and we all know how great Kyle Trask was last season and even the season before that. But I just got so much faith in Dan Mullen to, we kind of hit on this on the last pod we talked about where, I don't think Emory Jones is going to be throwing for 4,000 yards like Kyle Trask, but I think they'll change the offense. I think there'll be more ground and pound. They've got, a lot of experience returning on the offensive line. They've got some incoming transfers at the running back position, including a former 5-star that was only at Clemson one season and a former 5-star from Miami. So I think Florida's going to be a dangerous team. I think they're probably going to play a little bit more game control, run the clock down, rely on that defense. But they still got some really good receivers like Jacob Copeland is still there, and Justin Shorter and Henderson. I mean, they've got some weapons there. So this is a little bit different than Auburn, where I think Florida's going to be able to score about 30 points a game if they have to win a game. I think there's too much talent and too good a coaching on Florida to put them any lower than number 5 right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you could even argue a little higher just because of Dan and just because of what he's been able to do with the talent he's had around him. Yeah, Does he have Pitts? No. Kyle Trask gone? Absolutely. But nobody was talking about Pitts and Trask going into the season that really. I mean, there was a few, but it wasn't like, man, we got a real gem here. So right. That's something that Dan and the boys created down there. So don't be surprised at the end of this season. We're not talking about this running back room, which I'm arguing is just as good as anybody in the SEC. So he may just transform the whole damn offense to cater toward. He's going to do that. That's what I love about Dan, and that's why his name keeps getting popped up in NFL jobs. They play around the talent that they have, and that's something he's good at, is identifying the talent and making sure they get the damn ball. So. I think a lot of people are starting to sleep on Florida, and that may be exactly what Dan needs.
All right, number 4, Shane, Texas A&M and Aggies.
Giga Maggies.
Coming off a 9-1 season. They may be, they're in a weird spot because they could be, maybe that's just started the train to where they're going to be winning SEC titles as soon as this season. But at the same time, they're replacing a multi-year starting quarterback. They're replacing 4 or 5 on the offensive line, and the offensive line was the strength of that team. But on the flip side, the defense, basically bringing everybody back. It's going to be a dominant unit. But we all know college football is all about offense these days. So, and hell, they've got 3 running backs that, man, I'd put up with about 3 anywhere. So, a lot to like about Texas A&M, and I had them neck and neck with LSU entering the spring, but right now I got Texas A&M at this number 4 spot.
Yeah, a lot to like, but you hate them, Mike. What's up with that? I think I don't know if you know me. I'm all up in this LSU hype, and maybe that's why before you put these power rankings in, you're just like, you know what, Shane made some really good points, but I think you're wrong here, just barely. Okay. I think I like Texas A&M over LSU just because of what they've been able to do. They're just a few games away, buddy. A few games. Last year, you look at it, they finally won some big games. That's one thing that Jimbo always had on. Did he win Bama? No, but he got them early, and I think if they would have played later in the year, it would have been a different story. But he took it to the Gators, and I think that was a turning point for this team. Now, obviously, Kellen Mond's gone. The team's going to look a little bit different, but I don't think that's their strong suit anyway. Like you said, it's these running backs, and the offensive line you're a little worried about, but I don't know. I just think with all the other pieces and athletes around there, I'm liking these Aggies more and more every day. So I think you're a little low on them.
Okay, well, I already tipped my hand there. Number 3, LSU Tigers.
Go Tigers.
I know last season was a huge disappointment, but I think they kind of righted the ship there toward, if they didn't beat Florida last year or Ole Miss, man, we'd be talking Coach O maybe on the hottest seat in the country. But they did win those games, and they They looked damn good doing it on offense. I'm a huge believer, Max Johnson. Can't wait to see Brad clapping on the sidelines there. But, he's just surrounded with a lot of talent. And I think now that we got Bo Pelini out of there, I think the defense can make a nice little comeback here. And, I just think that going back to this Joe Brady system with, I know all the players are different, but a lot of the same level of talent, I think LSU is going to be a dangerous, dangerous team next season.
I'm with you, man. And this just, like you said, toward the end of last season, it felt like they started to find their real groove. And that's scary because a lot of people thought, hey, LSU's just drifting back to where they were. And no, this is a very talented team. It was just young, inexperienced. In fact, you could argue that of all the teams in the SEC last year, the one that hurt the most not having spring practice and spring games was LSU. And you saw that as they kind of just limped into the season. I don't think we're going to have that this year, man. You listen to Coach O, he's pumped up. They're firing on all cylinders. There was no off days. There was no slow days. These guys know what they need, and that is get ahead of the curve, because if they're going to compete with teams like Alabama and Texas A&M, they got to hit on all cylinders day one. And I still think you're a little too high on them. I'm on the LSU hype train. I would have flip-flopped the Aggies, but they're up there, buddy.
All right, so maybe the most controversial pick here. Kind of got to do these together because I've tipped my hand. Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Alabama. My God, how could anyone put the dynasty number 2? I thought the best comment, there's so many comments. I appreciate each and every one of them. Even the guys calling me idiots and all this. I don't mind it at all. But the best comment I saw was from a Florida fan, Shane.
Yeah.
That said, congratulations, Georgia Bulldogs, on your 8th off-season national championship since 1980. But, man, hey, I'm firm on that bandwagon. It's going to happen eventually. They've got all the talent in the world. They finally got that quarterback position solved. I know that George Pickens went down, but they are so loaded at receiver and running back. And, a little bit of transition on the offensive line, but with Matt Luke and all the talent he's got to work with, I've got no concern there. Only concern for Georgia in my mind is this defensive backfield. And I don't know. I just don't think that's going to be enough to cost them a national championship. Whereas all I'm hearing out of Alabama is, it's defense. Defense is back. Our defense is dominant. And that's troubling to me, Shane, when you got a new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, new offensive line, new starting quarterback, new receivers. I mean, my God, maybe Alabama can do it. If there's anybody that can do it, it's Alabama. But there's just too many question marks for me to put them number 1. And sorry, I put them number 2. Putting you number 2 in the SEC means you're number 2 in the nation. So don't feel like I'm slighting you too much. You know what?
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you, man, this one got a little tougher for me when Pickens went down. But it's not that I don't think Georgia's just as talented. It's not that. It's just I'm looking at track records, and Nick Saban owns them. You know what I'm saying? It's just when you go to a neutral site right now, if these two teams were to meet week 1 on a neutral site, I'm telling you, probably Alabama's going to be the favorite, I would imagine, because they usually win. So I don't know. I think we're splitting hairs here. I think if not now, then when. That's what you look at some of the great Georgia teams have years past. It's never been as loaded as it is right now. Now, there's been some talent. Don't get me wrong. There's been some first round talent go to the NFL, but when you're looking top to bottom, you're looking at quarterback. Like you said, you got running backs coming back. It would have helped if George would have stuck around, but he can't help it. He's got to deal with the injury now. But that's one thing Georgia has is they're so freaking deep. So if not now, then when. I can't argue with this list, this part anyway, because I'm with you. We joke about Georgia and their 1980 championship, but it's like, if you're going to do it, this has to be the year.
Yeah, so thanks, Shane, for liking the front and the back of my list, but everything in between, terrible.
well, I had to meet it somewhere. I can't say everybody's better, but no, this is a tough list because a lot of people look at power rankings and then they think it's just rankings. They
Right.
start factoring schedules and things like that, and that's not what this is meant. And it changes. If you know
Mm-hmm.
anything about SEC Mike's power rankings, all it takes is one bad game, and your ass is down at the bottom. So this is one of those, and that's what I like about it. There's not anybody really doing this, and I like you came out. It's really early. This may change multiple times before the season starts, but you know, as far as everything else, I think you're pretty daggone accurate. And we may look back and call you an idiot, but we may also look back, Mike, and say you nailed this thing. So that's the
Yep.
thing. Time will tell.